Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. Earlier today, we got some exciting new gameplay and enemy details for Jedi Survivor as a part of the IGN first coverage for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. There is so much stuff that got revealed by IGN earlier today, and in this video, we're going to be going over all of these gameplay details and all of the information about the new enemies in Jedi Survivor. There's a lot of information to get to, but before we do that, if you're new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that is just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It will notify you every single time Andreas and I upload the latest and greatest Star Wars and Jedi Survivor content. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the enemies in Jedi Survivor and the Droidekas that were confirmed for Jedi Survivor. That's right, guys. Droidekas have finally been confirmed to be in Jedi Survivor. Earlier today, IGN released this article titled Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Meet 8 of Cal's Enemies as a part of the IGN First program. So what we're going to do is we're just going to read through this article. There is so much information, and we're going to go over all of the gameplay details that IGN revealed for each of the enemies listed. Some of these enemies we already know are confirmed to be in the game, but we did get a lot of new information about those enemies we already knew about, and we got the confirmation of some new enemies in this game, most notably Droidekas are confirmed. So let's go ahead and let's just read through this article together. It starts with, a good action game lives and dies by the strength of its combat. True, but combat mechanics are just one part of the equation. Equally important are the enemies that put those combat mechanics to the test. And so one of the things that I was most curious about during my visit to Respawn was the enemy design of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. He then goes on to start revealing the enemies that will be in Jedi Survivor. He starts off by talking about the droids. And he says, early on, the team at Respawn knew that they wanted to incorporate more droids into the fold as far as enemies go. And true enough, there are tons of droids to fight against in Jedi Survivor, from the weak fodder like Roger B1 battle droids. A little rude to call B1 battle droids Roger. They are fodder droids. They deserve a little more respect than that, in our opinion. To the formidable Droidekas, also known as those cool roller droids from the prequel movies, or destroyers if you're Obi-Wan. And then he continues and starts talking about each of the droids. So he starts off with B1 droids. And he says the B1 droids cover the role of the fodder enemy archetype on the planet Koboh. They're as weak as can be, which we saw in that gameplay trailer, and something Andreas and I pointed out from that 9-minute gameplay was just how weak the B1s seemed, and that is exactly what was intended by Respawn, it appears. Falling to just a single saber slash or reflected blaster shot, but they're usually found in large groups and can still be dangerous thanks to their range and their tendency for hitting Cal while they're off screen. Most notably, though, their banter is hilarious. Of course, the B1s are hilarious. They're one of my favorite things from the Clone Wars. Of course, they're hilarious. Respawn has really upped their game in Jedi Survivor when it comes to amusing enemy conversation. So while it may be tempting to just wipe them out with a single force push, exercise some restraint for a few moments to let the dialogue play out, and you'll be rewarded with a good laugh. The next one he talks about are the B2 Super Battle Droids, and he provides that the B2 droids are the bruisers of the droid family. They take a fair amount of hits to bring down and can pack a heavy melee punch, while also being armed with both a blaster and a missile launcher to deal with damage from afar. They're certainly no pushover, but fall in this really nice spot where once you learn to time parries on their melee attacks, reflect their blaster shots, and always be on the lookout to force pull their missiles, they become much less of a threat. So the B2 battle droids will be the next step up from the B1 battle droids, which is to be expected because that is exactly what the original intent of the super battle droids were to be a step up in force from the B1s. So that is exactly what Respawn is doing here. The B2 will be the next level of enemy type as far as droids are concerned. The next droid he goes over are the BX commando droids. Personally, these were one of the most annoying things, if not the most annoying thing, from Battlefront 2, and this information that he provides in this article looks like that is not going to change in Jedi Survivor, where he says that BX droids are among the more agile droids and will surely put your melee combat skills to the test, as they will regularly parry your attacks and execute multi-hitting spin techniques while also leaping around the battlefield and being an elusive target. These droids have canonically been shown to use vibro swords and go up against Jedi, which according to the team really gave them a perfect mid-level enemy that can go toe-to-toe against Cal without feeling too fragile. So the mid-level enemy, as far as the droids are concerned, in Jedi Survivor will be these BX commando droids. And so far what I'm getting from this article is that Respawn really has taken the time to really develop and flesh out the enemy types, at least as far as the droids are concerned, because we haven't even got to the Empire enemies yet. They're really taking the time to flesh out these enemies and just give a lot of variance to the overall gameplay experience that players will have using Cal in this game, which is really nice. This will hopefully keep the gameplay from feeling repetitive and always feeling fresh, because you're going to have to hone your skills and change your strategies depending on the combination and which type of enemies you are coming up against in Jedi Survivor. The next one he talks about is the big heavy hitter of this article, the big reveal of this article. He reveals that Droidekas will be featured in Jedi Survivor. We have not yet seen them in any of the gameplay, but here is the official confirmation in this article about Droidekas. We were all assuming that Droidekas would be in this game just because we had seen pretty much every other type of battle droid and droid up to this point. So it would have made no sense for Droidekas to not be in this game. And we were actually just having a conversation about this in our Discord server the other day about where the Droidekas were at, and here we have them officially confirmed, and we get a lot of great information about them. He says, you may know them more colloquially as destroyer droids or those rolling droids from the prequels, but they're actually called Droidekas. I didn't get a chance to face off against them in my own playtime, but from what I was told by the design director Jason DeHarris, fans should expect them to behave as you would expect from the movies and shows. Quote, they've got the bubble shield, that classic to the IP, so you know we have to use that. We have to find a way to make that into the design. So they've got the bubble shield, they roll, and they actually incorporate that into their melee, so they can't just stun lock it forever, he said. This is incredibly exciting. Droidekas are amongst our favorite droids from the prequel trilogy, and we're very excited to use these new animations and new gameplay features for Cal to go up against the Droidekas with their bubble shields and those awesome blasters that they got. This will make for some really fun gameplay, we think, and probably some very frustrating gameplay. We're expecting that there's going to be some deaths to Droidekas in our near future here in Jedi Survivor. The next droid he talks about are the IG-100 Magna Droids, most famously known as General Grievous's personal bodyguards, which he actually mentions in this little information tidbit about these, but he says, the IG-100 Magna Guards are highly formidable enemies that anyone who's a big fan of the Clone Wars series should immediately recognize. These are General Grievous's elite bodyguards, and such, they are highly skilled melee warriors that can give a Jedi a run for their money. DeHarris describes the Magna Guards as a, quote, superior elite type of enemy that can be offensive, defensive, counter you, and attack in weird rhythms to try and throw your own counters off. So it appears that the Magna Guards, which is to be expected, will be among the more higher level enemies that you will come across in Jedi Survivor, which is incredibly cool. We cannot wait to do battle against these Magna Guards and feel like Obi-Wan when he was going off against them in the Invisible Hand in Episode 3. Very excited that Magna Guards made their way into Jedi Survivor, and we cannot wait to go up against them. This is one of the things we're most excited for in terms of gameplay in Jedi Survivor. The next enemy he talks about is actually one from the Empire, so not a droid. He talks about the new Shield Trooper, and he says the Shield Trooper was born from a simple need. The team wanted a Scout Trooper that survived a little bit longer, but as with just about every enemy in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, there are several ways to bring them down. You could hack away at their shield with your lightsaber and eventually knock it away, but that would make you vulnerable to the other enemies surrounding you. You could try to maneuver around it and slash it back, but they're generally pretty good at tracking you, and you'd have to find some way to distract them. The ideal way to deal with them, though, is to hold down your force pull to yank their shield away, and then Captain America it right back at them. So it looks like we'll be able to pull the shield away from these shield troopers and just throw it right back at them using the Force, which sounds incredibly fun and incredibly toxic as a way to deal with these enemies. He continues that Star Wars Jedi Survivor is full of moments like this where you can use your Force abilities in ways that make sense to gain an advantage in combat without explicitly being told to do so. This is incredibly exciting. This is something that Andreas and I were talking about in our gameplay breakdown the other day, where you're not being prompted and having your hand held along the way, being told how to use these mechanics. Whereas the environment is kind of guiding you along the way. You see something happen in your environment and you think to yourself, oh, that's what we should do. For example, in that gameplay, we saw the Boglings were doing that wall jump up to get to that new area. And instead of the game telling you, hey, you need to wall jump up, here's how you do it, you just see the Boglings do it, and Cal goes, oh, maybe that's what I should do. And that just helps keep the overall immersion of this game for the player and doesn't really break immersion, doesn't really make you feel like you're playing a game. Just another great small thing, a small little detail that Respawn, the team over at Respawn, has done for the gameplay of Jedi Survivor. The next enemy he talks about are the DT Sentry Droids. The impetus for the DT Sentry Droid was that the team needed a big brute enemy. Of course, this looks like this is going to be one of the bigger enemies, the stronger enemies that you face that are not bosses in Jedi Survivor. He continues in saying, and so Respawn turned to Star Wars Rebels and found this guy. One of the things that was really appealing about the DT Sentry Droid as an enemy was that they could have different loadouts. And so there are actually 3 variations of this enemy that you'll do battle with. One might have a staff and a missile, another might have a hammer, and another might come equipped with a blaster. This reminds me of how the Purge Troopers were utilized in Jedi Fallen Order, where there was the Purge Trooper, but there were different variations of the Purge Trooper that you would come across, and you would have to change your gameplay style and the way you went about attacking them based off of what their loadouts were. And it looks like that is what the DT Sentry Droids will be serving as in this game. It does make me wonder whether or not Purge Troopers will return to Jedi Survivor, but at least we are going to have an enemy in terms of the Sentry Droid that will act like the Purge Troopers did in Fallen Order, and I expect them to be just as difficult to face, if not more difficult, because the Purge Troopers were definitely one of the higher level enemies that you faced in Fallen Order. He continues that Shishido said that fans of Rebels and the Bad Batch should understand how menacing these droids are, and that the first moment you encounter them will be a real oh shit kind of moment. DeHarris also added that they are one of the few droids where you could hack off one of its limbs and it would still come at you, with its combat capabilities impacted by the loss of a limb. So even if you're taking one of their arms or one of their legs off, they're still coming for you. These are going to be a formidable threat in Jedi Survivor. And then the last enemy he talks about are the KX Security Droid Enforcers. We've seen these in Jedi Fallen Order, and they return to Jedi Survivor. And he provides that the KX Security Droid Enforcer appeared in Fallen Order famously as that droid that likes to grab and choke slam you, which, yes, that was incredibly annoying, one of the most annoying aspects of Fallen Order, and it appears we will be dealing with that again in Survivor. He says this particular variant, however, will not be doing any choke slams, so we actually won't have to be dealing with that, as they now come equipped with a stun baton, the weapon of the Scout Troopers. The story behind that is that these droids were used as the trainers of Scout Troopers and thus are basically 3 times as dangerous as a Scout Trooper would be. DeHarris said that they wanted to make the KX droid in Survivor a brawler type of enemy that could block and counter, and that they had thought about making it a hybrid style of enemy that could also grab you, but that mixing archetypes like that often muddies the design. I'm happy that Respawn really was getting into the weeds of making this gameplay enjoyable and making the animations very smooth and really taking the time to make sure that they weren't adding any features that were going to make the game feel muddy and clunky and stuff like that. So again, just more information that really shows that Respawn is taking such great care in providing a great game when this game does release in April. And then the final thing that he provides about the security droids is he says this is but a small sample size of the enemies that players can expect to encounter over their course of their journey in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. There are still all sorts of hostile wildlife that you'll encounter on the various planets. We got a glimpse of that in that 9-minute gameplay. Plus Imperialists and other human factions like the Bedlam Raiders found on Koboh. Here is another massive reveal. We finally have the name of the enemy faction. They are the Bedlam Raiders. So there is the answer to the question that we've all been wondering for months. Now, who are these guys? They are the Bedlam Raiders. It is also just a small part of our continuing coverage of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, so keep checking IGN throughout the month of February for more. We are going to be getting so much more information about Jedi Survivor. If you remember, we have IGN FanFest in just a week. That is going to provide so much great information, a huge spotlight and panel just dedicated to Jedi Survivor. So guys, be keeping an eye on both this channel and just Jedi Survivor overall. For the next few months, we're going to have so much new information, so many more breakdowns. We really are starting to ramp things up in terms of Jedi Survivor, but there you guys have it. There is so much more information about new enemies in Jedi Survivor. Droidekas are confirmed, and we finally know the name of that faction that is on Koboh. They are the Bedlam Raiders. So let us know down below in the comments which enemy you are most excited to face in Jedi Survivor. For us personally off this list, it's got to be Droidekas. I mean, that is just classic prequel trilogy content right there. We absolutely love Droidekas and we cannot wait to go up against them. So let us know which enemy you are most excited to face down below in the comments. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for me for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.